Let's get some analysis now on that jobs data. The independent economist, respected economist Chris Richardson with me. Chris, what do you think of the numbers that Ed just reported?
They are a big shift from last month. And that's good news. Certainly it's good news if you're out there and looking for a job. That's been getting slowly harder, but it wasn't as bad as it looked last month. This month says unemployment in trend terms is edging up, but it is not as scary as it was looking last month. That is important because until now we just had two bits of bad news at the same time. One around what was happening with jobs and the other what was happening with inflation. It looked as though unemployment and inflation were rising at the same time. Today's number says the job market is not as challenged as it was implied last month, but it also says that there will be no cut from the Reserve Bank to interest rates for the foreseeable future.
So when do you think that becomes a reality again, or at least a prospect, a rate cut?
Much, I would say, from here depends on what happens to wage growth. The Reserve Bank thinks wage growth will continue to fall back to about 3%, but won't get there until the middle of next year. If wage growth falls faster than that, and I think it could, that would say that dangers on the inflation front are looking a little less, and that would give wriggle room for one last rate cut. So I'm hopeful that by sometime in the first half of 2026, the Reserve Bank's still got one last rate cut there. My guess is, though, they don't think that. They think they're done and dusted, and today's job numbers are going to underline that and put a bit of an exclamation mark next to it.
I know today's number doesn't include analysis of this issue, but I want to get your thoughts on it regardless because of where the trend in the economy is. Recently, 80% of new jobs have been created by public spending, not the private sector. And that's been criticised, suggesting that it's masked a much weaker economy because of a lot more government spending. Have you got any reflections on that in the context of the figure that we've seen today?
Well, a lot of the good news on jobs, as you say, has been either direct or indirect public sector employment. That's been the big push for a while now. Equally, it's fair to say that is less true today than it was. Some of the big drivers, the NDIS, are still out there directly and indirectly employing more people, for example, but not quite at the same pace that it was previously. That is taking some pressure off the pace of growth in employment, and is part of the story. The economy is broadly looking a little better. The job market continues to look a little worse. Part of that is the usual delays from one to the other, but part of that is because government is not as big a driver of jobs now as it's been in recent years.
And why, just remind us, why is it important that the private sector growth steps up and replaces that public sector expenditure? I know there are a number of reasons why, but can you just explain to our viewers exactly why that is important? That for a whole, productivity, for a whole range of other reasons, it's important the private sector pick that up.
And that is exactly right. Longer term prosperity is going to be mostly created in the private sector. Public sector's got all sorts of important roles to play, but your simple summary is private sector creates prosperity. Public sector works to generate that into fairness. The combination of the two is what counts. Longer term, though, you do need a private sector in Australia which is not merely generating jobs, but also generating efficiencies, getting better at what it does, or in the jargon, getting more productive. The greatest quote in economics is that productivity isn't the only thing, but in the long run, it is almost the only thing. That is our ultimate gain.
Indeed, and you don't want the public sector dollars squeezing out some of that private sector capacity. I want to ask you as well about the energy market. Now, this is more a political question for people like me and political watchers in terms of the energy rebate. I think that looks more and more likely the government is going to continue that rebate when the energy rebate to households beyond the end of this year. It's meant to wrap up, I think, from memory, December 31. That will continue, I predict, into next year. How long will the government have to keep subsidising energy prices? They say renewables the cheapest form, but right now, this shoveling out cash to industry and households.
Yeah, and we are, and to be clear, neither side of politics has got the answer here. If you're looking to politicians for your stories around what's happening in energy markets in Australia, then you're making a mistake. But because of the politics around this, we've seen big subsidies. The latest number out of the Bureau of Stats is that if you took away those subsidies, electricity would cost 13% more than it is at the moment. The government, it's good politics probably for it to keep paying those energy subsidies. That keeps, in many ways, pressure on a coalition which is in crisis over energy policy. But it's bad policy to keep those energy rebates going. To pay people to keep the lights on as a permanent thing is a reminder that we do not have our policy settings here right.
Chris Richardson, thank you as always. Great to get your insights. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kieran.